Welcome back to Money Honeys. I'm Freddie.
I'm Chantel.
And I'm Dev.
So we're kind of going to jump right into it. Life has been lifing. You know how it is. And lately, when people have been asking me how I've been doing, I've been like trying to be honest and be like, well, not great, But like, my circumstances haven't really been changing. So every time someone asks me, and if I'm truthful every time, now I just feel like I'm being negative and also like attracting negativity because it feels like I'm complaining too much. It feels like nothing is changing and getting better. So I've just started saying, I'm good. Like, you know how it is. So Chantel, when people ask you how you're doing, what do you say? And then how do you really feel? You also have like some new developments. So I really want to just like update everyone on that too.
Yes. So, well, I have some recent good job developments that I won't get into fully here, but it's very exciting. We're really happy about it. But yeah, so I mean, like in the past, when I've really been going through stuff, I have been honest about it, but I feel like I wouldn't go into it right away, but I would have like a line that would sort of denote that I wasn't necessarily doing well. So I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm good. But I think I would be like, we're working through it. We're working through it. Like I think I would kind of say like honestly like a corporate answer like that, where it's like, things are not great. And it's like, if we get to it, we get to it. But if we don't, it's like, you know what? I'm here. How about you, Dev? How do you say what you really feel?
I mean, I think I'm similar. I always try to do like a little bit. I'm always like I like your line, Fred, life has been lifing. I feel like that's a really good one. I always say like, I'm here, I'm live, laugh, loving. Like those little things to kind of like not only make other people laugh, but kind of make me smile actually help. But Fred, I do feel you so hard because it's like you want to be honest about your situation, especially when we're talking about our needs, like the pyramid of needs and our survival. But you also want to be able to like law of attraction, like think positively and bring in cool and amazing new opportunities. And quite frankly, like I always think about when I was acting, I had the opportunity one time to be on the other side of the table and be on like in the audition room to see all the other people come in. And energy matters. It really matters. I'll never forget seeing people walk in with like either like rushed energy or grouchy energy. It really comes across.
Yeah, because the truth is, I'm motherfucking broke. And it feels kind of incessant at this point. But I'm trying to, just figure out a different way to express how things are going without feeling, because then when I'm like speaking these things out loud, then I start to get into a mood about it, So then I'm like, where's the balance there?
But you're not alone in these feelings. The economy sucks and most people are having a hard time financially. I was like literally watching TikTok the other day, and those tarot videos where people like they'll just like bombard you with like cards. Basically, you'll be scrolling and they'll be like the 9 of clubs, and you're like, not clubs, the 9 of cups. And you're like, whoa, what does it mean? And so you stop. And so I went on the comments, and the number one comment on one of these like tarot videos was like, I hope this means I'm going to get a new job, like, or a job. And securing a job seems to have been super hard, and it's never been this hard. I mean, maybe in 2008, but we were in college and babies then. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been rough. And as all of you can tell, the three of us have kind of moved away from influencing on social media full time, and we prioritize other ways of making money. And turns out, if there's a way to make some extra money via socials, we're not saying no to that.
Not at all. Not at all at this point. Open to any and all streams of income. Money come my way, money come our way, all of those things. So
I don't have to. Can I just quote a TikTok that's really funny that was like almost that exact line? Okay.
Yes.
When you said We're open to any opportunities at all. It reminded me of this comedian. Their name is Kel Kripe, and their first viral video that I saw was, "Yeah, I'm in an open relationship, open to any relationship at all, preferably monogamous and long term."
Yes, literally any.
Yeah. Sure, have open opportunities, open to any opportunity.
Yeah, any damn opportunity. Absolutely. So, you guys, I've spoken to you briefly about this lifestyle influencer named Renee, also known on social media as Owned by Femme. I discovered her actually on YouTube. So, a little fun fact about me, one of my favorite things to do on YouTube is watch home tours and like interior design content and like architectural digest type content like that. It truly fuels my soul, like in this kind of like dark time of like feeling sad and hopeless. Oh my gosh, so depressing. But
I mean, look, we've been there. We've been there.
Yeah. So that type of content really lifts me up. I look forward to it every day. It's truly like number one on my YouTube algorithm, all those things. So Blavity has a YouTube channel or a show called Home and Texture. And Renee's home popped up on there. And I watched her home tour and I was just like, wow. Like I was obsessed. Like I could not believe what I was seeing. I've never seen a home so intentionally and beautifully done and so feminine and beautiful. Like she truly inspired me of just like really truly making her house her own and not being worried that it's like too pink or too girly. Like it was so beautifully done and so tastefully done. And I was just like, wow, like hopefully one day I get to meet this girly because I am truly inspired. And so recently, so I started following her on Instagram and we actually do have some mutual friends. And recently she posted a post of her just like dancing in a video and there was embedded text over top of it. And it said, screaming, because for the first time in my life, I've hit $500,000 in income as a content creator and the year isn't over. But this time last year, I had rolling credit card debt, tax debt, no savings, and a literal countdown to the day I would run out of funds and not be able to pay my mortgage.
Whew. Wow. So much to break down. So much to break down. $500,000. What? We need to know all of that. And going from, having that countdown to funds, I've been there. I've been there too. Would love to know how next time I'm there I can translate it to $500,000.
Well, I hope that there won't be a next time. But you guys, I'm so excited to have Renee on our podcast to break it all down for us and really just kind of give us some insight on, where she was in 2023 and where she is now and how she got there. Hey, Renee.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello, lovely ladies. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that beautiful intro. I feel so fabulous hearing such nice feedback about my home. But yeah, lovely to chat with you guys. I'm excited for the conversation today.
Oh my God, we are so excited to have you here. You're our first guest of this season. We've just been talking to ourselves this whole damn time.
I know.
Oh my gosh. An honor, an absolute honor.
Well, welcome. And if you can just kick us off and tell us a little bit about like, who you are, where you're from, and how you make your living, because we're nosy. Okay, so we're just going to hop right in. I want to know.
Absolutely. So I am René Daniella, and my social media platform is Owned by Femme. It's across, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. It's Owned by Femme TV. And I have worked as a content creator and a travel media host, which, is just kind of a cute way to say like I host travel videos for tourism boards as well as on different platforms, different media platforms, for about a decade now. And so I have experienced kind of the birth of the Instagram influencer space. You know, when I started 10 years ago, this was very much a new term. I don't think the term influencer was out at the time. We were under the umbrella of like blogger and YouTuber, but that really wasn't my main platform. So over the 10 years, the industry has grown, it's developed. We are all quite familiar with influencer, content creator, and the categories that I tend to work in most is travel, but as well as like women's lifestyle. So beauty, hair care, skincare, and then household things too. Like that's something I've loved getting into as a creator in the home decor space now. But yeah, so content creator, I've done it full time. I'm American and British. I am living in LA in the US, but I grew up kind of like a military brat. So I grew up traveling, moving around. My previous industry was public relations. I always thought that is what I was going to work in. Like I loved the 9 to 5. I thought it was cute, doing events, all that good stuff. I went into my master's to do more of a global position within PR because I loved it, but I love travel. And I was like, how could I bring those together? And I said, let's do a global position in the travel media space and travel PR space and see where that goes. And by the end of my master's program, I had fallen into social media. And fast forward 10 years, here we are.
Wow. Wow.
Honestly, like spoken like a true, just beautifully put, like a true PR professional. Like that, you can tell.
That helps.
You can tell. Yes, you can tell.
Okay, so you said you've been in this space for about a decade. Let's get into it because there have been so many changes across, you know, just the influencer and content creation landscape in general, right? Like from the algorithms to how much brands are willing to pay, like all these things have changed so much over the past decade. So let's get into 2023. What was different about that year in comparison to previous years for you?
You know, I feel like there's quite a few factors when I think what might have influenced 2023. So I want to preface it with the idea of I look at the social media and influencer industry and space as something that is quite abundant in terms of money, right? It's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. There really is kind of this pot of money out there to be made. So I would say 2023 is a year that a lot of people felt, you know, the effects in our pockets in terms of like so many of my friends who work in tech and work in that industry were getting laid off. And I think across many industries, people getting laid off. So I think ultimately brands were cutting budgets in many spaces, including when it came to social media, some uncertainties and things around that. Additionally, like on a personal level, so I in 2022-ish to going into 2023, I had gotten kind of my heaviest in like the physical sense. Like I'd gained a lot of weight. And the thing about social media is it is a face, like front facing type of thing. So like you need to be comfortable on camera, you need to be on camera, you need to be creating content, and you need to feel confident and good in order to communicate and convey that type of energy like you guys were talking about earlier. It really is about energy, especially when we think of trying to fake the funk. It's really hard. And on social media, I think because it is this consistent machine of like you've got to pump out content, I on a personal level just wasn't as confident and comfortable. I was at that point in like my weight journey where my clothes didn't fit anymore. I had like one of those pivotal change moments where I was like, oh my god, there's an event that I wanted to go to and I couldn't find anything to wear, like to wear my like yoga pants are busting at the seams. And I just thought, okay, either I'm getting a new wardrobe or I'm losing this weight. And then I looked at my bank account and I was like, well, I'm not getting a new wardrobe, so I guess I have to lose the weight. And so 2023 became this like personal evolution where I was focusing on my weight loss journey. We were looking at the change in the economy in terms of like jobs adjusting. So there was a slowness in terms of the way I was producing content, which ultimately leads to whether or not I'm going to get booked for certain gigs and things like that. So I would say on a base level, I had still made a couple of 100,000 in 2023. But I think one of you guys mentioned about being a homeowner as well. Like I bought my home at the beginning of 2022. So coming to 2023, like that cash cow that I had prior to buying a home was now my down payment on the house. So I was in a whole new economic place for myself where I just didn't have the same cushion that I had before. So I didn't have that same like cash kind of base to work around. And I also just didn't have a lot of financial literacy. So 2023 was this year of getting back comfortable physically, adjusting to the economy and trying my best to be really aware that there is a lot of money to be made in the industry, but that I also had to treat my job as a job and not as a hobby. And I had to get comfortable and not let certain physical limitations, like, or confidence limitations, limit the way I produce content, because it is my full-time job. I would also say there was a change as well in my content style. I got more into the home space. And one thing about changing topics or industries, you'll know sometimes it's a slow start. Like, you have to build up that audience, build up those brand relationships, you have to build up that kind of recognition. And so, 2023 was just a lot about adapting, and it was a lot about personal development, where I had to get back to a space where I felt comfortable creating content. And by the end of 2023, I'd lost like 35 pounds or so. I was kind of back to fitting on my clothes again. I was back to creating content that I really loved. My home content was taking off. I was getting house features, which to me, is mind-blowing as someone who, I don't know, I never would have pictured that I would even be able to create a space like this. Like, I've got, I say it humbly, but I do believe my house is so gorgeous, and I'm just really grateful for what it came out to be. But yeah, so that was kind of what I think was the difference in 2023. It was just the economy and the industry itself was taking a hit, and then on a personal level, so was I, and I had to kind of go through those growing pains.
That is so, 2023, I think, came really fast for all of us. How did you grapple with, because you mentioned that you had this weight journey, and then also you were feeling like you had to refocus on finances and felt like you didn't have the financial literacy. So that's a lot of vulnerability. How did you deal with all that vulnerability by putting because we have to put ourselves on camera. We have to put ourselves out there. How did you grapple with those two forces?
Oh, absolutely. And I would say there's almost a similarity in the cloud that you feel when you're not happy with your body. And not to put that on anyone else, because I love body positivity and I love when people are fully confident at all their stages. But I think there might be some people who can relate. Like, if you are not happy with your weight, there is kind of this cloud that sits over you. There's a little bit of that depressive energy. The same thing is about finances. Like, when you're broke and you just look at that account and it's just full of despair and hopelessness, and you're looking at your bills rolling in, and you're like starting to crunch the numbers. And it was getting to the point where I was like, well, do I need to get my nails done, or do I need to I was getting so strategic around like my airline point miles, for example. Like, if I was booking anything, I was getting really desperate around like, okay, well, if I do it on this day, I save like $60. And like, I remember like one of the low moments for me is, I'm definitely, me and my friends, we're all the kind of people, we like to spend our money like drug dealers sometimes. And so if one of us is like, we'll go out for dinner and one of us will be like, I got it, girl. Anyway, and I remember there was a time where my friend and I had covered a bill, and I think she must have like owed me maybe like $140. And I would normally never ask for that money back. There I was, I'm like, oh my God, like I literally need that 140 to make my mortgage. Like, that's down to the pennies. That was my bank account. And especially if you work in the entrepreneurial space, like there's moments where brands are net 60, net 90, they haven't passed their net and they haven't paid you yet. They've gone out of business and now you aren't getting that money, like period. So I was in a really tough spot. And I remember having to ask for that money back. And I was like, girl, we need to get it together. Like, I miss the lobster dinners and the Alaskan king crab legs and taking the random trips to Jamaica. And so, it was hard. I was stressed. But I will say there was kind of a correlation, like the discipline that you get through your workout routine, and that like the optimism that you get from treating your body better, the clarity in your mind from getting more rest, from getting those workouts in, from regulating, I guess, and balancing your body and eating in more like a nutritional manner. All of that also kind of contributed me looking at being broke and saying, okay, well, how can I fix this, right? Like, I love this house. I'm not trying to lose this house. And I love working in the space that I'm in. I did ask a few friends for some advice around getting a job in an industry, in like public relations again, maybe. Like, is there a 9-to-5 I could get on the side? Is there some project work I could pick up? But anyway, so I just started to flip the light switch, really the same time that I came to be at peace and comfort in my body again, and said, what can I do to help myself get out of debt and pay off the debts I owe, but also get to a place of more abundance and start saving and all that good stuff again. So yeah.
Would you say that when you had to ask your friend for that $140 back, would you say that was like your aha moment of like, okay, this can't happen. Like, I really have to turn things around. Like, was that the aha moment, or did you have like another one?
It wasn't necessarily asking her. It's the fact that I was looking at my bank account and it was pennies to what I
Yeah.
owe. You know what I mean? Like like me and my friends have no shame amongst one another. Like we have each other's back, and I really appreciate like a sense of community. I would say that's a huge part of having a strong foundation as well. So yeah, I would definitely be within the bubble of like this house. Like the mortgage changes the game. When I was paying
Yeah.
rent, like mind you, when I had rents, I was drug dealer life. Like the bank account was full, the money was abundant, like influencer money, like it was raking in at a rate that I couldn't spend. And not even on some like, I wasn't making millions by any means, but I was just making multiple six figures and not spending that much. And I think I'd mentioned this before, but I, as a content creator, as an influencer, sorry, I mentioned it on Instagram, on social media, but in this space, like a lot of the benefits are also things that like I get free trips, I get free clothes, there's a lot of things that I would have spent my money on that I don't have to spend my money on by working in this space. So when you talk about the money that you make as an influencer, there's also a lot of additional perks and benefits that do give you a little bit of a financial grace, right? Like they give you a little bit of support in that you don't have to spend that money on other things. So there's a lot of different ways that as a content creator, as an influencer, that you can make money that can balance you out. That the mortgage to me put a huge pressure on everything because now we can't play, and it's not the kind of money I could go to my mom and be like, hey mom, I'm having a tough month, and if you miss 1 month, well now we are almost 5 figures in the hole. We missed two, well now what are we doing? Like
Yeah.
it's too far at that point. So yeah, the aha moment came when it was like, oh my god, this mortgage is in the game and I can't play. I have to figure this out. And I also just thought, I know there's money in this industry. How can I get smart about it? So there was that optimism. Maybe it was delusion, but it was that feeling of like, there's got to be a way. And so you just pursue it a bit more relentlessly that way.
I love that. And it's like also so Freddie and I both have mortgages as well. And it's there really just is a different pressure, when you're looking at your bank accounts for that, because you can't miss your mortgage. You have to pay it. And so if you don't have that money, you got to come up with it somehow. And I really like what you were saying too about sort of getting like mind, body, spirit correct as well, because I think that you basically you started creating your own momentum, of like your momentum of just taking control back, and that's not to say that a previous lifestyle like was you out of control or anything, but just you saw where you were at and you knew that you wanted to be somewhere different, and so you started looking at all the tangible things that you could do, just fully mind, body, spirit. So I think that's really admirable.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually I never connected the two, like in regards to how I'm feeling in my mind, body, and spirit, and how that could affect the work that I'm doing. Like I've always kind of tried to separate the two. Like it's like, okay, career's over here and then mind, body, spirit is over here. But like, I haven't really considered the idea that like one may not be able to work without the other,
So what would you say that your mindset was like when you found yourself in severe credit card debt and tax debt? Like, how did you impact your day-to-day life?
Yeah. So once I'd gotten to the point where it started to feel worrisome, right?
Yeah.
Where I started to feel more of the stress of it all. Because I think for a good portion of 2023, there was still always that feeling of like something will come. Like when you're in the entrepreneurial space, sometimes it's a big hit, right? Like you get a big campaign that's 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand. You get a couple of them back to back. And then there's lulls. So you just kind of get used to the idea that like, okay, it's something's coming. And it's just like the bills just kept taking away at whatever I had left. So it was really later in the year like that I started to, and again, it was kind of correlated with later in the year I'd lost the weight that stressed me. Later in the year, my finances had like kind of caught up to each other, and I realized the income was too slow for what I was about to be spending. And so there was, that moment of a slight despair, because I was like, who can help me? Like, I'm a single woman. I own this home by myself. Like, what can I possibly do? But there was that kind of optimism and like strength that I had been building up throughout the year that said like, you've got to figure it out and you absolutely can. So what I really kind of started to do was get very strategic. I took what I did know about the industry in terms of being able to reach out to brands and being able to create strategic content and be able to just be consistent in the content I create, as well as I started to learn how to budget. You know, prior to 2023, I did not really have a budget. I used to listen to those programs and think, okay, well, generally, what do I spend a month? But when I actually sat down, there was an app called Rocket Money. I still use it. I think it's a great app for managing your budget and just having that general awareness about what you spend and what you're spending your money on and where it's going. So I got that app and I probably canceled like, no word of a lie, maybe like $1,000 worth of these random subscriptions. They weren't necessarily all monthly. Like some of them were yearly ones that I was paying for, that I paid for like the last 3 years. Like Canva, I was never using Canva. I was paying like, I don't even know how much I paid for Canva, but I was not using it and I was paying for it consistently. I had like a teleprompter app that I was paying for and never using, and that was like over 100. I had a piano learning app, you know, the random stuff that you signed up in 2020 because you're so ambitious. So ambitious that you were going to accomplish all these new skills. Well, now there they were haunting me and moving along with me 3 years later when I changed my life path. So I used that app and it helped me just tackle my debt. And I think I don't know if it's snowball method, but there's like some psychology around the idea, like as you like get a little bit of your debt gone, like you start to feel a bit better, and so that momentum starts to pick up. So the budgeting became a bit of a game, like, and again, like you guys were saying, many of us were feeling this way last year. So it became healthy hangouts, like meet you for a coffee and a walk instead of our like lobster dinner. Like we'll just change a little bit of our behaviors. And a lot of my friends were on board with that. So it was a lot of shifting the way that I viewed money, the way that I related to money. I had to adjust my budget. I also started reading more literature that was about financial literacy and like financial wellness and being financially whole. I love Tiffany the Budgetnista. I think she's incredible. She's got a book, and so I started reading that, and it's like 10 steps to like financial wholeness. And so I read that all throughout last year, and it was like the second half of last year, and I found that was so helpful. I finished it kind of early this year, and so many things were applicable to kind of where I was in terms of like, okay, credit card debt, it's high interest, I should tackle that one first. That one affects my credit and this kind of thing. And then saying, okay, well, I never had a savings, like an intentional savings, right? I had money that was in my account from before, and then I used all that cash for my down payment on the house, and then over time, like as I made money, I was spending it. So I didn't get to a place where I had this kind of cash available to myself. So I never had an emergency fund. I never even really thought about it. And had I set something like that aside, I really would have maybe had a bit more of a cushion last year. So that was something I was really intentional about this year. So I've got only about 4 months worth in an emergency fund. But that to me is like kind of my step towards, that direction. I hope to get to 6 months and maybe even a little bit more out of just that feeling of like, I never want to be that level of broke again. Like I need more of a cushion. But yeah, I just started really implementing all the things that I was reading and just getting really like hungry and determined in terms of the financial, like the opportunities that I could find and create for myself within social media. And that was really around like November. And it was like November where I sat down, October, November, and I sat down and I was like, okay, based on the brand work that I have left and the money that is owed to me, I have until like, if I was eating ramen noodles for the rest of this year and beginning of next, I have until about March 1st before I have $0 and 0 cents. And then I still have a 20K Amex bill and like whatever. And I would have nothing. And I was paying like the minimum payments on the Amex bill. So now I'm paying $400, $500, $600 a month and interest on all those. So like, I'm watching it all. I'm just like hyper aware that, oh my God, this is still happening. But yeah, so I know I'm like, cries and stares at the wall. So yeah, by the end of, by that November period, I was like, okay, no worries, Renee, girl, you could do this. So I started pitching brands and I started putting a strategy together and I started creating what for me was, let me treat my influencer job as more of a business because I'm realizing there's more competition in the space, and then brands are having to get fiscally responsible. Like we don't know when that pendulum swing is going to go back to brands just throwing money back out. So how can I get more strategic?
So I love what you were saying about kind of strategizing and pitching yourself. So, and this can apply to anyone looking for any type of opportunity. It doesn't strictly apply to just content creation, but generally giving someone your resume is essentially pitching yourself for a job. So for you in your space, what does it mean to pitch yourself?
Well, so I would say it's pitching, and there's two sides. There's kind of two sides to it. Like on the one hand, you are reaching out to brands with ideas, and so this also kind of relates back to the idea of like wanting to be in a good like mind, body, spirit place. Because when you feel good in that way, you're way more creative, you're way more optimistic, you're way more ambitious, you're way more, not to say entitled, but you have that bit more audacity to believe like, yeah, I deserve that. Yeah, that's right for me. And so I'm
Preach,
going to
Renee,
start.
preach.
So then you start taking those liberties and you start thinking like, yeah, okay, I have this great idea and I think it would work really well for this particular brand or that particular brand. And you just start thinking like, it would be a benefit to them and to myself for us to work together. This isn't me begging you for money or begging you for an opportunity. This is mutually beneficial here. Like I'm offering something great, right? And so I started out in terms of pitching was just kind of reconnecting with brands, reconnecting. And by saying that, I mean reconnecting with the person on the other side of that email who's handling the influencer relations, who's handling the press, who's handling partnerships and collaborations, so that they at least know that I exist, right? Because that's kind of I feel like there's two parts, right? There's the one part is like, do they know you exist? And the second part is does your platform, when they come to check your page to see, is it like, to see if you can be backed up, everything you've said in that email, when they come look at your page, is what you've said, is there, right? Is there audience? Is there engagement? Is there quality content? Is the categories of your content match what this brand speaks to and what their audience is looking for and what they are hopefully looking for to achieve with their sales or marketing awareness, whatever the case is. So my agent always reminds me that like you really do have to have that consistent content machine going so that when the brands come, they can see that content that they can see themselves in. And when you're not necessarily pitching them, they've come across your content through the algorithm, through home tours, through whatever the case is. Like you are pushing stuff out and you are creating things that can attract the brands that you want to work with and the opportunities that you want to get. So it is about the pitching and it's about the reaching out to brands. But on the other side of it, it's still also having the business strategy of how you're going to create and put out your content and like what's that messaging going to be and how can brands be integrated. Because on one hand, you want it to be organic and like social media is a space that really rewards you to be organic. But at the same time, there's an element of like entertainment, an element of sales, elements of like being able to market something. And so, so those are the two kind of things that I had to approach was I want to pitch and I want to put myself in front of these brands and I want them to know that I exist and I want to either just say, hi, I exist, or come to them with an idea that I think would resonate well with them moving forward. So so those are the kind of the two ways that I approached it as my strategy for getting back on the money train.
So how did pitching yourself result in hitting $500,000 in income as a content creator in less than a year? Like, do you feel like I mean, first of all, congratulations. Like I am
Seriously.
Yeah.
like it really makes me emotional because I can only imagine how you started to feel once those offers started rolling in. Like at what point, did it take a while after you had started pitching to really start to see that traction, or did it kind of start happening right away because you were so confident, you already had content, ready to go on your page to show? Like, what was that? What was the time frame there?
So just to be clear though, when it comes to pitching, it is just for anyone listening, I'm like, pitching really is one of those kind of long games. It is the kind of space where you can send 100 emails and only get one response sometimes. Like I will say there's more strategic and like better ways to pitch than others. And there's also better times to pitch, and it can be different for different brands and stuff. So I will say pitching is one of those things where like, it can't be your full bread and butter, and you can't put all your hope in that basket, but it's definitely something if you are at the bottom of the barrel and nothing else is working, like at the bare minimum, you better be doing that. So that, again, yes, you're getting it in front of people. But yeah, it kicked off really well. So I started in November. And my strategy was really like, I made a list of brands that I would love to work with, I thought would be great. I prioritized brands that I already had a history with, a relationship with, brands that I've worked with organic, or that I posted and shared about organically, that I use organically, or brands that I've actually had paid partnerships in the past, and or just PR individuals or agencies that I might have worked with in the past who may have new brands, new clients, new, people that they could bring collaborations to me about. So that's why I prioritized, and it was really just a matter of getting in front of them. But two in particular of the brands, one that I had reached out to, it was very lucky. There was someone on the other side of that email. She is someone I'd worked with in the past. And so she was like, hey, like, it's actually great to hear from you. We worked together many years ago on this particular event. Perfect timing. We are putting together our influencer relations for 2024. I will submit you to the agency that's handling that. Like, thanks a lot. And that was end of November, right? And so we're really, that's not going to come to fruition until the next year, but it was great for me because it's like, cool, I'm on their radar. And I did so that was something that I felt really good about, and that was something I was kind of like, wow, if I hadn't reached out to them, would that have developed at all? And that ended up being a 6-figure partnership throughout the year. So which is only my like 4th or 5th brand where like it was been one individual calendar year where I've made 6 figures with that brand. And then another brand, I didn't necessarily pitch them individually in this time, but they're someone that I consistently pitch throughout the years. They signed me to a 10-month contract, and that was also 6 figures. So I kicked off Q1 at already $250,000 for the year. So I kicked off the year, right? Like I kicked off the year really strong. It was like this instant, like, oh my God, I can breathe.
Yeah.
And I tried to get a little comfortable. My mom was like, but don't you have that tax debt? And so immediately I was like, fine. So I got very, very ambitious. I was reading the books. I was like, okay, now I've made a little bit of money. What do? I pay off my taxes. I do this. I paid a little bit on my student loan, like a good little chunk. And then I paid my tax debt off fully, which, was a huge relief. But it was also that moment of like, oh my God, I've made all this money, but it's gone like immediately.
Yeah.
It was 6 figures of tax debt. So it's like big chunk of money just gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I will say it was pretty quick that I started to see some of the benefits. But additionally, there's brands I pitched to around that same time, and I didn't get my first partnership with them until about 6 or 7 months later.
Wow.
It really is just that feeling of like you're cultivating relationships. And so the pitching is just to help you cultivate kind of in the slow times, but as well as just stay again on people's radar so that they know you exist. And yeah, if you've got nothing else going for you, then at least do that so that you can see if there's some opportunities that are coming up that you could be a good fit for, that you'd be a great candidate for. Because ultimately, how can a brand work with you if they don't know that you exist? That's kind of my mind frame around it. And I don't doubt that there might be people who receive the emails and they're like, she's too thirsty. Like, right, they might get the email and be like, but at the same time, it's like you miss all the shots that you don't take. So I might have missed that opportunity for whatever the reason was. They might have looked at my platform and said, you know what, this isn't quite a good fit. Or hopefully they might look at the platform and say, oh, it doesn't work for right now, but they know that I exist. If something comes out that is a good fit, at least they can then reach back out to me. So that was a lot of my approach to it. It's definitely a long game. I did have a couple of brands that ended up working out very well initially and in the beginning of the year, but considering I've probably pitched over 100 brands and maybe 7, 8 of them turned into like paying brand opportunities. They just happen to have been really big paid brand opportunities, right? So yeah, when you look at those odds, you've got to decide. But hey, I pitched 100 people and I got over $250,000, but it's happened to be that it was a smaller group. So yes, I will say the pitching is an interesting game, but the more strategic you are with the business side of how you treat your page and your content and your strategy around content, think of ideas, think of like projects that you can do, that you can create yourself, like whether it's a travel series, whether it's a beauty series, like think of something that you can integrate brands into and put it out there. Even when you think of things like a podcast, like, wow, you guys are in a fabulous position to work with anybody within the financial literacy space, maybe even within things that you need. If you're financially literate, maybe you need QuickBooks, maybe you need, if you want to get a mortgage, maybe there's lending providers that might be like, wow, this podcast is fantastic to work with. And you guys have already done a great job because you've developed the branding, you've got your consistent content going out, you've got quality content going out, you're networking. So now when I reshare my experience on this podcast and say, guys, you want to know how I went from broke to Borland? And I'm really not. I'm like, let me knock on wood. I'm like, I still need money. I still need money.
girl. We all do.
But yeah, if anyone wants to know, they can come listen to it. So yeah, you got to be strategic on both. So pitching is essential, but get your brand stuff together first and foremost.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, I love this. And kind of like what the other girls were saying, like I can really see that like this really is like the perfect space for you to be in because you understand both sides so well. And I can really hear the PR, just like the PR experience and skill set coming through in the way that you describe how to really land these partnerships. So this is really, really helpful. And I hope that our listeners can, and I know that they'll take a lot from this. So
Good.
I kind of want to circle back, right? Because you were talking about when you were kind of down and out, you were thinking, okay, maybe I'll go back to 9 to 5. Like maybe there's some opportunities there where I can get some type of stable paycheck. So I know that you didn't go down that route, but were there any income streams you hadn't considered before that played a big role in your financial success, or even like any brands? You know, was there anything different you tried that contributed
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
this?
So now I'm a huge believer in renting out your space. So I have a guest house on my property. Like when I bought my home, I wanted to have, it was really the only intention was that I wanted a space that my mom could come and stay with me with, because she lives alone in England. And I was like, I lived in lofts in LA, but prior to this, and so she'd visit, and I was like, oh, this isn't, comfortable for her. If she wants to come and stay long term, like, what could I do? Had all this cash in my account, because I'm not paying these taxes. Anyway, that's another story for another day. So I bought a home that strategically had a guest house that I could give to my mom. And so my mom's like, great, but she's not a big fan of LA. So I have this house, the guest house, but I've rented out my guest house. And luckily, I've mostly rented it to friends. I've also used platforms like Furnished Finder. So if there's anyone out there who's trying to figure stuff out, Airbnb is nice, but I like Furnished Finder. It's more for business professionals. So not traveling nurses, people in corporate, maybe they're doing job relocations, maybe they're doing just projects, so they're only short-term staying here, but longer than wanting to be in a hotel. And they'll put their listing on what they need, what they're looking for as tenants, and you can actually send them your listing, which is a bit nicer than something like an Airbnb where you've got no control over who's going to end up seeing your space. So I started getting strategic about renting out my guest house and just being intentional and making sure I've got tenants in there. So that pays about 40% of my mortgage, I would say, my monthly mortgage, by renting out my guest house. And then my front house, I have the idea, or my house, I have the idea of like, I decorated it. And even when we talk about the decor here, that was intentional. And I think there's something to be said about the idea of setting an intention when you do something. I created my place from the lens of I'm a content creator. I will get more gigs and more opportunities and like more brand partnerships if the aesthetic of the content I create is something nice, something beautiful, even if it's just beautiful in my own vision of it, right? But I took each room and I said I want each room to be a stage, a set, its own design. But that ultimately led to me creating a space that now there's a home tour and things like that. But yeah, so something I'm looking at, and I haven't kick this off necessarily yet, but I'm looking at doing like peer space where if there's production rentals, commercial shoots, photography shoots, influencer shoots, things like that, they can rent my space in order to use it for their creating content and stuff. And I've had a few inquiries because I'm still like getting my listing together and putting it up. But the inquiries have been anything from like $900 to like $1,600 for a single like booking. So you can see how if I, market it correctly and I get more strategic and more intentional, maybe the content style of the photos that I put on the sites to position my home in a way that like captures more attention, that could end up paying my mortgage and then some, right? Like ultimately, we'll see, check back in 2025, we'll see where that ends up going. But I would definitely say that's something I've pursued, is just kind of like, how can I make some of the assets I have and making me some money? I've also looked into things like affiliate. I don't know if you ever tried affiliate programs for anything. Maybe some of the brand partners you've done codes, but I will say platforms like Amazon or platforms where people are quite active already, Target, Walmart, there is money to be made if you are tagging strategically and intentionally and creating content that actually is intentional about what you're promoting, whether it be the shirt that instead of just like tag my outfit, like maybe you're doing something that's like, okay, this is a shirt I'm wearing and this is where I got it from and this is why I like it and this is the material and this is the fit and this is the benefit. Here's the link. That's very different than when you post something that's like, I'm going to the market today and you just happen to tag like my top was from so and so. So I got intentional for like a couple of months and I was able to make over $1,000 each month just on affiliate, and I didn't even post that much content. I think it was like maybe one reel and a couple of stories. So when I look at these girlies and gentlemen who are doing content where they're like, my 5 kitchen finds, my Amazon favorites, my favorite packing whatevers, this, that. They're putting that content out there. I just know they are making 6 figures monthly from their affiliates because that content is constantly, it's like evergreen, it's getting recirculated. They're putting it on TikTok, they're repurposing it. So they're editing one way and they're re-editing it and they're pushing it on the Black Friday sales and the Amazon Prime Day sales and all these things. But yeah, that's an example of something that it's an opportunity to make money. So if you want to get strategic and intentional about it, then there is a chance. And depending on what you need to get out of the hole that you're in, that 1,000 a month might just be enough.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
if you get really intentional about it, maybe you're making 10K a month and now it becomes life-changing money for you. You know, I don't know, depending on people's situations, what they're looking for. But yeah, so affiliate is something that I've looked more into. But all these things are very much like, you have to put in the effort. You have to be intentional. You don't accidentally make the money on these things. Like influencer space, sometimes there's campaigns that pop up and you're like, I didn't try at all for this. This came in the thin air. Don't even know how they found me. I don't work anywhere related to that particular space, but whoever found me said, oh yeah, she'd seem like a great candidate. And now you've made, 4 or 5 figures for a single campaign with someone. But generally speaking, being intentional is going to be far more lucrative and far more rewarding when it comes to the opportunities that you can get.
I guess what I'm saying is like looking at the spaces where you want to be, almost like manifestation, like learning from other people, learning from other creators, like figuring out, okay, where am I at? Where are they at? How can I get there? And you literally just by like paying super close attention. And I think that goes across, I think that goes for any and all spaces that people want to be. Like, it's time to, like you said, start taking control. Like it's very rare that things just fall in your lap. It's very rare. So it's really important to like put forth that effort, be really intentional about every step that you make, and you really will see the fruits of that labor. So
yeah, absolutely.
One thing I really love about what you've been like just saying in sharing your truth is you're being vulnerable with us. You're sharing telling us about your mistakes, but you're never making it about like, and therefore I am bad. Like I had tax debt, I had credit card debt, therefore I am bad. And I think that's not like a pitfall that I fall into. If I'm going to just like share my heart for a second, like sometimes when I feel like I don't have my bag in order, if I don't have like my finances in order, I start turning that around and getting overwhelmed and feeling bad about myself. So what is some like tangible advice that you might give to somebody who is getting like emotional and overwhelmed about where they are financially? Because I think that sometimes can like cloud our logic. I know it certainly does for me.
Yeah. I would say one of the things that helps me, like I am a list person, like I've got to write something down. And so I really do think it helps. But again, there's two sides. But so I'll say on the one hand, I still want to emphasize like you got to get your sleep, you got to get your workouts in, you've got to have healthy relationships with your friends. You have to remove toxic people, toxic energy, toxic places. And if you have these constantly negative mindsets, sometimes you even have to write those down and kind of look at them neutrally and say, okay, what can I do to change this narrative that I've created in my mind? And what are the truths and what are the lies within this? So even for myself, I think there's an underlying optimist within me. So I just always feel like, no, everything can be fine. Everything can work out. And even when it's really shitty, like there's a way to find the positives in there. So I think one, I really I took my power back. I know somebody mentioned that earlier. Like I took my power back. I said, okay, well, I'm not comfortable. I'm not fitting my clothes and I'm not going out and my debt's piling up and this, and it. And it's like, if I stayed in that space, then it would continue to snowball in a negative way. But I kind of just had that aha and that breaking, guys, either it's aha or it's like I'm breaking and boohooing in my shower, like, however you want to look at it. I had that moment where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like it's either I fix it or it's like, this is the end of everything, and not on any, kind of dark faces, but just this idea of like, either you're going to fix this girl or you're just going to accept that this is your life now. And so like, you've got to go one way or the other. So when I said, okay, if I'm going to fix it, what does that look like and what can I do? And I just think education and awareness is a huge part of it. And even like you were saying earlier, somebody was talking about the idea around your relationship between food and diet and what you eat and how that contributes to your brain and your brain health and cognitive abilities and all those things. Like I really started to look into everything from like podcasts around gut health. Like I spent 2023 like holistically approaching it everything from my finances to my personal wellness. And again, things like my relationships and that I had in my life and my friendships, and cultivating the ones that felt like they were rewarding and letting go of ones that felt like they weren't healthy for me, putting up boundaries where I needed them, all of that kind of stuff. So for anyone who feels bad, I would say one of the first things is identify feelings around shame and stuff, and just try to release yourself from them. Like, to me, I think shame is one of the worst human characteristics, and I know so many of us carry it. But even I didn't even share the part about my tax debt. Like, I talked about being broke last year, but I didn't really even share publicly about my tax debt until more recently, like over in this year, because I finally paid it off. And so I felt like, okay, well, now I can talk about it. But there's a shame I felt of just like, I can't believe I'm supposed to be an adult. I'm supposed to be this person who has their life together. And yet the IRS very well could come over and be like, ma'am, you have to pay us or go to jail.
No.
And I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, go get it together. But yeah, there's a shame that I think we all carry about some of our struggles. And there's a point where you just you can't be ashamed to struggle. Like, all of us have to go through struggles, and struggles is a cycle. It's part of going to the next stage in whatever you're doing, and whether you're going to pivot and go in a new direction. All of that is part of it. So you really have to create kind of that healthy foundation that works for you, whether that's a morning routine that helps you feel productive, whether that's writing out lists and to-do lists and checking those little boxes off. I mean, I literally created a to-do list last year that is my morning list, and it's like make bed. One of them says wake up. I'm like, yay, accomplished. Check. Pat on the back. You did that. One thing off the
Get
list.
it, girl.
And then, no, literally. And then it's make bed, brush teeth, wash face, healthy breakfast, work out, read 10 pages. Like, these basic things that I do feel quite good about myself when I do them. But yeah, so I did things that were intentional that would make me feel a little bit better every time. And it just continued to grow. And I nurtured my friendships and I took action so that I didn't have to feel so helpless. And so even if it did take a couple of months before I started to get responses and start making any of that money back. And even then it's like, I signed contracts, but as you know, it takes net however long before you even get a portion of it, and you don't get all of it until you've completed it. And if they're going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 months long, then you got that money, but you don't have that money.
Yeah.
So it was still a lot of being fiscally responsible and everything. But yeah, there was a sense of accomplishment as I took those baby steps, and I just made sure to give myself that grace and help myself feel better and just invest in things that made me feel good and continue to do the things that made me feel good throughout the process. But yeah, I think that idea of letting shame burden you and letting, and making it, causing inaction, like that, the way that you can feel paralyzed from debt, or paralyzed from shame and like how your body looks, or paralyzed from your peer and their views of you and people, public opinion and things like that. Like, you really do have to nurture your own foundations so that you can stand stronger in these positions and believe in your capacity to rise above them, right? Like, you just have to believe, like, I can get through this. So if I know that that's the case, I know that that's fact, let me start writing the list of like what I think I have to do. And then we trial and error. If something doesn't work, we go back to the drawing board. If something works, we say, okay, great, well done. How can I do that and improve upon it? Or what's the next step after that? So yeah, it's really just being intentional and rewarding myself along the way.
I feel like I could listen to you talk for hours. Like, seriously.
Oh my God.
Honestly.
So inspiring.
Truly.
Thank
Renee.
you.
Thank
That's
you
so
so
nice.
much. As a few girls who have been in the content creation space and care a hell of a lot about building our wealth and maintaining it, you, my friend, are an inspiration. Where can people find you? Please follow Renee.
Yes, it's at Owned by Femme. It's OWNBYFEMME. It's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Oh, sorry, X. And then on YouTube, it's Owned by Femme TV.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You have been a delight. I learned so much.
Thank
and
you.
Let's get this money, ladies.
All right. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I will be tuning into the podcast.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
What a delight. I am so happy that we had such a great first guest on season 2 of Money Honeys. Thank you all for listening. We're so happy that you tuned in. Again, follow at Owned by Femme on all platforms. And until next week,
Bye.
Bye.